Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Joseph Ryder Anderson podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Speed of Sound Sonic and my custom build for this deck. This deck is very strong, very fast, and definitely is a bit better than what we probably think because it has not seen a huge amount of play, at least not in regular store tournament, regular basic battle format. Although it has probably seen plenty of play in the rare battle format. In this build, we're going to be leaning very heavily into the Boros engine and the 4 combined life total mechanic that you're going to learn a little bit more about in a bit. With the main goal being using Speed of Sound Sonic to whittle away your opponent's life and then using your own card effects to get rid of your own life to unlock powerful finishing moves end of game. So to start, let's talk about this deck's 2 most important characters, which will help us understand the rest of the characters better if we go over this first. The 2 most important characters are your 2 4-cost Speed of Sound Sonic characters. So one is a raid, and then one is a 2 action point character. And the raid one is going to be your most effective early game, at least at getting rid of life, and can also be used as a closer if you can take multiple attacks in a turn. So this Speed of Sound Sonic, when played, you can remove 3 cards from your sideline and draw a card. That's not only good because you get to draw a card, but also because the switching effect that you are going to leverage with it can only activate if you have 3 or less cards in the sideline. And so you're really going to need to make sure you don't have too many cards in your sideline, and this is a great way to do it by just playing your Speed of Sound Sonic. So once after you played it, rated it, moved up to attack, after you finished your attack, and assuming you have 3 or less cards in your sideline, which is usually, again, not an issue in a Speed of Sound Sonic deck, and your opponent does not have a character with 6,000 BP or more, and that's base BP, so this doesn't count. If your opponent hits an active trigger, that's not going to shut this off. It has to literally be a character with 6,000 or more base BP. So you're talking basically the only card that can stop this right now is Saitama. As long as that's not the case, you can switch Speed of Sound Sonic with another Speed of Sound Sonic from your deck and just keep attacking. This is a really effective way to get multiple attacks off in a turn. And you have several Speed of Sound Sonic characters to target with this. You can use it on any Speed of Sound Sonic. So if you have like another raid, or if you have the 2 action one, you can target that. But also you can target your 2-cost Speed of Sound Sonics. You have 2, and both of them have the potential to boost to 4,000 BP, which means you can easily be switching your raid 4,000 BP Speed of Sound Sonic with another Speed of Sound Sonic with 4,000 BP, and use that to either decimate your opponent's life or just force them to block and remove characters that way. The other really powerful character, and I would not underestimate this character. Originally, I had thought that this was a far weaker version of Speed of Sound Sonic, and I've come to realize it's actually a very strong card. And that is the 2 action point Speed of Sound Sonic. You play this character set to active on the field, and when you play him, you can play 1 Speed of Sound Sonic character with 2 or less energy from your hand or sideline to the field. So that means you can, again, play one of those 2 cost Speed of Sound Sonics and leverage their when played ability. So that lets you draw added cards and also fuels your front line or your energy line with more Speed of Sound Sonics to then target as a raid target or to use on future turns to attack. You can also use it as a way to switch out your raid and protect your raid on the energy line and protect it from being taken out by a special or an effect the following turn. So those are your 2 strongest characters, and they're really what the whole deck is built around. And again, if you didn't know this, you can see the entire deck list. I'm going to share a link in the episode notes to be able to see this entire deck list on the website. So on josephryderanderson.com, you'll be able to follow along with the entire deck list as we're talking about it. Moving on to what the other strongest card in this deck is, and it's a little bit of a wild card because there are some pretty strong conditions around this card, but that is the 6-cost Boros character. So you're not going to ever want to play Boros for the actual 6 cost in this deck, and also the way this deck is built makes it very hard to actually reach that 6 energy. But if you get to a point where your opponent and you have a combined total of 4 or less life, then this Boros can be played for just 4 energy. When he's played, he boosts by 1,000, so he boosts to 5,000 BP, has impact regardless He just has impact always. And also, very importantly, if you have reached that 4 or less 4 or less life combined total, and in this deck, if you're playing Boros, you probably have reached that, then you can pay 1 AP to just outright sideline a character, which is pretty insane. So you're getting this really powerful character for just 4 energy, and you're sidelining the character when he's played. All you have to do is pay an extra BP, and that's something to keep in mind. You do have to pay an extra BP to unlock that sideline, although you don't have to. You can just play him and take advantage of his 5,000 BP and impact without actually paying that AP if you don't want to. But that being able to sideline with him is a powerful removal tool, and you will usually be wanting to look to do that. For Boros, you have 2 raid targets. You have the 3 cost Boros, and he is very strong. When you play him, you can add a card from your life to your hand and draw 2 more cards, and then you sideline 1 card. That's pretty insane, letting you see 3 cards. Again, you are going to have to sideline, or you're going to have to take a card out of your life area, which does make you more vulnerable. But the thing is, if in a perfect game and you really want to be playing this deck to win, and you want to be playing to come out up in front, you're going to be way ahead in the most matchups. As long as you're playing well, you're going to be ahead. So you actually may just need to take your own life in order to take advantage of the Boros or some of your other effects that only activate when you have a combined total of 4 life or less. So that Boros is an extremely strong draw engine. Now let's talk about each single card in this deck and go through why it's included. We'll start with the 0 cost Boros, another great raid target for Boros. This character, you play him, you can draw 1 card and sideline 1 card. And also has the powerful active trigger. So that just gives you extra staying power if you hit him off of your life. So that Boros is a very strong 0 cost character. You do have the 0 cost Speed of Sound Sonic, which is arguably your strongest 0 cost character because he can be used in multiple ways. He can be used as a raid target for your raid Speed of Sound Sonic. You can use him as a target for your 2 action point Speed of Sound Sonic, bring him back from your sideline or play him from your hand. And you can also then switch him in. If he's active, you can use him as a switching target for your raid. So he's just an all-around great card to have around. And the other 0 cost character is the Garu. There's 4 of him. He's just here because he's a 2000 BP character with the active trigger, and you can use him to rush early without being afraid of getting him sidelined because he's not going to be useful in any other way other than as an attacker or blocker. Moving on, Mosquito Girl. Mosquito Girl is deceptively strong. So she's a 1 cost character, and there's 4 of her. You play her, she can boost a character by 1000 BP, so this can be a really good way of making your cards be able to get through whatever is on your opponent's front line. But her more impactful ability is actually her Activate main, where you can use this to bring a card from your life to your hand, and then also grant her 2500 BP, which effectively makes her a 4000 BP character, which means she can attack through most of what your opponent's going to have on the field. So not only is that super effective to just get through more attacks, but it also is a great way to get an added resource to your hand, as well as to slim your life down. If you're ahead, which you often will be with this deck, you might again have to slim down your own life so that you can activate those Boros finishing moves, and others as well, which we'll talk about soon. So that Mosquito Girl is really strong, but don't underestimate the fact that it is an added resource. You can think about these adding cards from your life to your hand as effectively a draw. So from a sequencing perspective, you're going to want to use these before you use up all of your AP. If you're going to use it that turn, use it before you use up all your AP, because once you see that added card, you might have a change in strategy. So it's good to see more cards first before making your decisions, because you have more options available to you, and more options is always better. Moving on to your 2 cost characters, we brushed on them briefly, but let's talk about them because they are some of your most effective cards, and those are your 2 Speed of Sound Sonic characters. The first one is the stronger one, and we'll talk about that, which is the one with the color trigger. So color trigger in red is the one that sidelines a character with 2500 BP or less. This is a very effective trigger. It may not sound like a lot, 2500 BP, but what happens when you play aggro red decks like this is your opponent is usually forced to field a lot of smaller characters to deal with the onslaught, and they'll use those as chump blockers, or they'll use those to try to keep pace. So you'll often have something to hit with this with this special, and it acts as a free removal. So that's not something to be taken lightly. Super strong. And the fact that that's combined with a character who's only 2 costs and has a 3,000 BP base is pretty insane. That 3,000 BP can also boost to 1,000 if you hit that 4,000. That 4 cards combined life in both yours and your opponent. So that means late game he becomes a 4,000 BP character, which you can then switch in and out with your raid, and you can also use take advantage of his when played. So when you play, you remove 3 cards from your sideline, and you draw a card. So that helps you keep your sideline thin, so you can take advantage of that switching effect. And it also is really effective to use off of that 2 AP Speed of Sound Sonic that lets you play this from your sideline or hand and take advantage of incremental draws. Seeing more cards is always better and can give you a strong advantage over the competition. Speed of Sound Sonic, the other 2 cost character, this one does not have a trigger, but this one is also very strong. When played, you can draw a card and sideline a card, which is always nice. And again, you can place 3 cards from your sideline to removal area to grant this character 1,000 BP. So he boosts to 4,000 BP as long as you just remove 3 cards from your sideline. So again, that gives you another 4,000 BP attacker, which you can switch in and take multiple attacks in a turn with 4,000 BP, which just helps ensure that you're going to get more attacks through, because most of the characters you're going to face down are going to be 4,000 BP characters. And even if you face down a 5,000 BP character, you could use your Mosquito Girl potentially to grant another added 1,000 BP if you need to. So that's the bulk of this deck. Very strong, as you can tell from just what we've talked about so far. Very solid deck, very strong combos. I think the last card to talk about is the Carnage Kabuto. In my deck list, you'll see I'm running 3 of these. I would actually suggest potentially taking away 1 and giving another card to the Boros count. So you have 4 count of Boros. He's just such a strong closer. So 4 Boros and 2 Carnage Kabuto would probably be the only change I would make to my deck list I shared. And so this basically Carnage Kabuto, he's usually just a 4K body, but if you do hit that point in the game where you have 4 life or 4 total life or less, you can give him impact by placing 1 card from your hand into your sideline. You can grant him impact. It just helps you close out games. Impact is always a really solid keyword to have, and he does have the active trigger, which is super handy. And worst comes worst, he's a 4,000 BP body that you can play down. So I would probably drop him down to a 2 of, but he's still a really effective character. So now that we've talked about every single card in this deck, let's talk about some of the matchups you'll face. So this deck that I'm sharing, I did get first place at a store tournament with. And in that tournament, I did face down. The hardest deck I faced down was actually piloted by a very strong player, and he was playing Blue Sukuna. Typically, I would have thought Blue Sukuna wouldn't be as good of a matchup for this deck. I did play a different version of this deck that was less focused on Speed of Sound Sonic against Blue Sukuna in the past, and had some trouble. Against a pure Blue Sukuna build, though, surprisingly, it's actually not a horrible matchup. You can move a bit faster earlier than the Blue Sukuna can. Blue Sukuna takes much longer to build up, especially getting those fingers into the sideline. So if you go second, I would definitely recommend going second with this deck and just try to get as many hits off early as you can. And then use that Boros to sideline the Sukunas that are left. I think that in my matchup, I got ahead so early that I then did have to focus on taking my own life away so that I could hit that 4 cost threshold. That 4 life threshold and start sidelining characters with Boros. Against another deck that I played in that tournament was against Lancelot, and I've played against Lancelot before with this deck. And Lancelot is a really solid matchup for you. You move so quickly, it's hard for them to keep up with that pace. And then the fact that they have a 5,000 BP character actually doesn't end up being a huge deal for this deck, because you do have ways to boost, you do have ways to get multiple attacks in, and you also can easily sideline or attack over a Lancelot using Boros. So I think the coolest play in that particular match was I really far ahead, but my opponent did manage to field a 6 cost Lancelot, and then came in with an 8 cost Lancelot that I'd given them off of life. And that 8 cost Lancelot was definitely going to be a bit of a threat. There was a moment where I had to choose to let an attack in or not. I think I was so far ahead that I was able to let in 2 Lancelots in a turn. with damage 2, and that brought me down to 1 life left, and my opponent had 3. So hugely risky play, but I knew that if I didn't even have a Boros in my hand, but I had a Boros target on the field. I knew that if I could hit that 4 life left, and then somehow manage to draw a Boros, which there was no reason why I should have thought I could do that I could pretty much close out the game. I could basically get rid of that 5,000 BP character, and then the paths would be free for me to do an all-out attack to end the game. But again, hugely risky play. I think that's part of the fun of Speed of Sound Sonic, is you're really living on the edge by taking your own life and letting so much banking on that end game is a really fun risk to take. So weirdly enough, one of the cards I got off of my life was the Boros Raid. So the next turn I was able to play the Boros Raid, sideline the 5,000 BP Lancelot, and then go in for the kill via multiple attacks and things like that. So this deck is definitely not for the faint of heart, but if you like living on the edge a little bit, definitely try out Speed of Sound Sonic. I think a couple more matchups I'll talk about. One is the Metal Bat matchup, which I tested pretty extensively specifically for the rare battle, and I ended up going with Metal Bat because I found Metal Bat had a better had a slight advantage in the matchup. I think it's a bit more consistent. It can do a little bit more without having to reach that 4 at the end, that 4 combined life total. I found that, if you hit that, you can definitely do some serious damage with Speed of Sound Sonic, but Metal Bat's less reliant on that, and so that makes it a little more versatile. So I would give a slight edge to Metal Bat in the matchup, but it's definitely not unwinnable at all. It's still a pretty decent matchup for you with Speed of Sound Sonic. I think the one matchup which does bear mentioning, and it probably comes to your mind right away when you think of using Speed of Sound Sonic, and that is the Yellow Saitama matchup. That is going to be your worst matchup. Weirdly enough, the Green Saitama shouldn't be a huge deal because you move so quickly that they shouldn't be able to get that 10,000 BP, sorry, not 10,000 BP, but the 15 cost Saitama out. So you should be okay in that scenario. But against Yellow Saitama, this is a real threat. I did manage to beat Yellow Saitama, but I think that its odds are pretty well stacked against you because that Yellow Saitama, if they hit that on the field, you can't do your switching, and that's just a huge advantage for them. That switching with the Speed of Sound Sonic is just one of your most effective pieces in this entire deck, and really your deck is largely based around that, so especially early game. And then of course you do have some added removal, but you can't get rid of that Saitama with your removal anyways. So yeah, it's tough. It's a tough matchup. That's the only matchup that I can think of off the top of my head, though, that's a really bad one for this deck, which is the Yellow Saitama matchup. So again, that makes this deck a little bit risky to take to a rare battle because if your opponent is running Yellow Saitama, it's going to be hard for you to beat it. But in a regular store format tournament where not everyone's running Yellow Saitama, you should be able to edge out a few wins here and there from against a Saitama player. So I think interestingly enough, Speed of Sound Sonic is a really strong deck. I don't think it's up there with the top decks, like the specifically talking about Blue Sukuna, Kogias Purple, or what's another one? Like I guess a Yellow Saitama, like those kinds of like top tier decks. It's not going to be up there with those, but it's definitely a solid step down from that. And I think you can definitely, if you're a skilled enough player, win a store tournament with this, upset the competition. It's a fast deck, it's a strong deck, and if you build it this way, you have a very powerful way to close out games. I hope this helps you with playing your own Speed of Sound Sonic deck, and I will see you next time.